Maia and Askren, we've had a couple of days to digest this, and I just enjoyed that. Oh boy, did I enjoy that match. I mean, you had two guys on their feet looking to hit one another, and then you had a grappling display on every side of it. So much of us think of just right here. What happens from the guard, or what happens from can this guy pass guard? There's a piece to that where a real hardcore enthusiast is going to enjoy it. But before you ever get to the ground, somebody has to take the other one there. And the takedowns that Askren was hitting were fantastic. And frankly, even though he did get taken down, Maia's defense was great. I think if you went and talked to Askren and just asked him one question, hey, were you surprised with Maia's defense? I think he'd say yes. Even though Ben got him in that position every time he made a strong effort to get him there, I think he still would acknowledge some of the resistance that he was given and some of the hip position. Maia's a good athlete. I mean, Maia is he doesn't look like a Yoel Romero, by example, where you see a guy go, okay, that guy's a good athlete. If you go watch Demian Maia, and don't forget, he's a two-sport guy. Guys that come into MMA from a different combat sport background don't ever get the credit of being a two-sport athlete. Maia was a world champion in jiu-jitsu. MMA is a different sport. And he made it to a title fight. And then he made it to another title fight in a totally different weight class. I mean, this guy is wildly successful as an athlete. You even watch his stand-up, which I know gets a lot of criticism. And no, he's not an Anderson Silva on his feet. I get it. But he's effective as hell. Maia will just come lunging in with power shots because he's one of those few guys that does not care, genuinely does not care if you grab a hold of him and can put him in a bad position. You'll see a lot of great strikers come over to the sport. Use Tyrone Spong, by example, a great kickboxer. Came over to MMA. He didn't get beat, but he had a hard time. He had a very hard time, even in fights, MMA fights, that stayed on the feet with a greatly inferior opponent. But he would have a hard time. Ray Sefo would be another fine example. One of the greatest strikers, but when in MMA, he couldn't quite use his striking the same. It just takes time. Now, both of those guys could with time. Both of those guys could with more experience. They chose to go back to their fields. They could have been Andersons and Vandalays and Adesanyas for sure. But to use those few fights that you did see with those few minutes, there's just a fear. When you're in there and you're a great striker, there's a fear to use it because every time you extend, you're now vulnerable. Every time you kick, you are now vulnerable to takedowns. I use that as an offset to my example about Maia, who, I agree, he is not the most polished and he is not likely to spend the rest of his life making DVDs on striking techniques that you guys are all going to run and buy. I get it. But you can't deny that he's effective. Strikes are used to hurt an opponent, true. But in MMA, they're more used to get a reaction from the opponent. If you want to grapple, you need that strike to create a reaction so that then you can go to step two. Maia gets a reaction from everybody. He comes out as hard as he can. And you look at that Askren fight, all he threw was power shots. He threw some leg kicks, but I'm talking about with the hands. He only threw crosses. Only. He'd change and throw it to the body. He'd come upstairs and throw it to the head. But it was because he is not worried of the other. It's a very real thing. You'll have wrestlers going there against a powerful kickboxer, and then the wrestler will knock him out. It'll be some huge surprise. That's true, and the wrestler is not as good of a striker, regardless of the fact that he beat him in a striking contest, but the wrestler could make the striker drop his hands because he was so worried of the threat of the takedown, and he wasn't comfortable there. This is just something we've seen in the sport. But it's the opposite for Maia. So is he the most polished striker? I'm not even trying to say that. But I would hope that you wouldn't agree that he is effective because his goal isn't just to hurt the opponent. His goal is to get a reaction. And he succeeds every time. When you look at these guys, okay, where do they go from here? I would like to hear from Maia before I guess on what Maia's going to do and where he should go from here. Maia's top of the game. I get it. He's a top 10 guy. He's not a top 2 guy. He's not going back to a title, but he's got a seat at the table. If he wants to fight, his record, his resume, his finishes, the fact that now he's a main event fighter, even the fact that he's an older fighter on his way out, that's still something unique and positive and marketable and monetizable. Maia has a seat at the table. The reason I say I'd like to hear from him, in his last contest, he came out afterwards and said, I want to do one more. I'm aware of my age. I'm aware of where I'm at. I've accomplished what I want to accomplish, but I would like to do one more. He was very specific. I would like Diego Sanchez as an opponent, and I would like it to be in Brazil. I would like to say goodbye. And that's not really something a promoter wants to do. I mean, you can see why guys always have these wishes and tough ones like that. A promoter kind of goes, I don't live for today. I live for tomorrow. I need all of these pieces to build momentum for one another. And if a guy is saying, salute, that's not the most intriguing thing I've heard today. But Maia was still clear on where he was. Now, he didn't get Diego, and he didn't get Brazil. In fact, he got the complete opposite, and he got it in a complete different location. But now I haven't heard him say, yeah, this is my last one. Thank you all, and goodbye. Would have been a great moment to do it. Who gets to go out like that? But he didn't do it. So I don't think he's done. So I think he's got something left. Is that the retirement fight? Is that the one where they go to Brazil, and who knows who the opponent is, but c'est la vie. I don't know. So I'd like to hear from Maia before we start talking about who he should face. I think he has tipped his hat to the audience that my days of dreaming of being champion are behind me, but I'm still very special, and I'm very unique, and I take on all comers. So I think we got a lot of good options there. Now, when you look to Askren, look, I know what everybody's doing, right? Askren lost, and now he's lost twice in a row, and he was finished once with strikes and once by submission. I get it, guys. But any of you that are setting out to hurt Ben Askren's feelings because you rooted against him for all those years and all he did is win fights, stay undefeated, never lose a round, change promotions, and win championships everywhere he sat down. All of you that now want to hurt his feelings because you finally have an ability to, I think you got to look a little bit closer at that match. That was a good match. Really good. That was a close match. Really close. He took some big shots, didn't care at all. Went for takedowns, found them all. Ended up on the ground with one of the best to have ever done it in that position. Did just fine. Made it almost 15 minutes. There is certain fights that would only be scheduled for 15 minutes. I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at this fight, but to come out and then look at Askren and go, done. That's not objective. That's not fair or objective, but it is still a tough spot for where does he go from here when a guy has put all of his sights on being a champion and now getting back to that title just became a little bit harder. Okay. But I don't think it's anything more than that. It just got a little harder. I think a guy like Askren can live a pretty good life and have some pretty good competitions ahead of him when all he's got hanging over him is things just got a little bit harder.
He's been running these streets for years, and he's still here, and so is fear. Undisputed, never lost a round. Bodies hit the ground when the bad guy comes to town. American gangster, this man will put a hurt on you. You'll be crying for your mama by the time he's through. You better believe